justice for all mankind. These are the Super Friends.
Now cast your minds back to the early 80s. Saturday mornings on telly in the States and right here in Australia was a state of absolute chaotic transition for an entire generation of kids. The weekend didn't just start with chores or responsibilities. Nah, mate. It started with pouring yourself a massive bowl of sugar-loaded cereal and parking your standard issue kids-size ass right in front of that telly to get a front row seat into the adventures of, yes, the Justice League. Now, Hanna-Barbera's Super Friends had been holding down the fort on the ABC network ever since bloody 1973, and it was an absolute staple of the weekend lineup. But by 1983, after a solid decade on the airwaves, the legendary franchise was fighting to stay alive, and its future was looking a little wonky. But what happened next became one of the most fascinating, fragmented and just downright bloody confusing chapters in the entire history of superhero animation.
Nothing makes sense here, man.
And of course, we're talking about, the year of the lost episodes. Well, they weren't exactly as much lost as they kind of really just went on holiday to Australia.
Australia, here I come.
This was a batch of 8 brand new episodes that mysteriously did not air in the United States during its original planned 1983 to 1984 Saturday morning run. It was a season shaped by heavy budget pressures, constantly shifting broadcast standards, and the looming shadow of a massive toy line that was about to change the entire industry forever. This is the story of the Super Friends Season 7, the lost 1983 season that nearly vanished into the bloody Phantom Zone.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Now look, to understand how we reached this strange head-scratching moment in 1983, well, you got to take a look back at the journey that Hanna-Barbera took from when they first adapted the DC Comics premier superhero team back in 1973. And over that 10-year stretch, the show was consistently reshaping itself to match, whatever the kids were into at that time. And by the early 1980s, the show had found a pretty comfortable rhythm. But ABC execs were already looking towards the next big shiny thing, leaving the world's greatest superheroes sitting in a bit of a uncertain, dodgy position.
I have a bad feeling about this.
So look, by the time production actually really kicked off on what was meant to be the 1983 season, Saturday morning TV was changing at a lightning speed. The 7th season, produced under the watchful eye of the absolute animation legends William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, was specifically designed to keep the franchise going strong on ABC. So the team, they just knocked out 24 short segments, and the plan was simple. Package them up into 8 half-hour episodes featuring 3 individual bite-sized adventures per show. Nice, neat, and simple.
Yes, that's perfect.
But instead of debuting all the shiny new content of the fall of 1983, those bloody bigwigs at the network made a proper baffling move. ABC went, to the new stuff entirely and just kept airing reruns of the old Super Friends material. I mean, actually, what the fire truck? So while the American kids were getting fed those same old reruns over and over again, they'd seen a dozen times, international broadcasters, including right here in Australia and a few other places overseas as well, actually started airing these lost episodes that turned into Season 7, into what was a massive global anomaly, really. We were sitting back enjoying some fresh superhero action while you Yanks were left completely in the dark. Now, isn't that a turn for the books?
Didn't see that coming.
Behind the scenes, the production of season 7 was a classic textbook example of the good old Hanna-Barbera efficiency. And by efficiency, I mean saving a few dollary dues here and there where humanly possible. The voice cast still featured some of the most iconic names of the era. Of course, the legendary Danny Dark brought Superman to life with his deep, booming, authoritative voice. Good old Casey Kasem was back, giving Robin his familiar, wholesome warmth. Then you had Sharon Farren as Wonder Woman and Olin Soleil as Batman. Fun fact for you all out there, this season was actually their final time voicing these legendary characters before unceremoniously getting the ass for the following season. Meanwhile, Michael Bell voiced Zane and Louise Williams voiced Jaina, keeping the Wonder Twins right at the centre of all the bloody mayhem. On the writing side of things, the team was operating under the usual strict, though slightly loosening network broadcast standards. To get the episodes finished on the budget, the animation itself was shipped off overseas to other studios, which was pretty standard practice back in the day. Now, what does overseas outsourcing mean for us, the viewers? It meant you got some classic Hanna-Barbera stuff-ups, a charming mix of animation shortcuts, random color errors, and background characters reusing the exact same walking cycle 4 times in a row. It's the kind of budget-friendly madness that fans look back on today with some proper nostalgia.
Oh, they don't make them like this anymore.
Now, why didn't ABC air these 1983 episodes domestically in the first place? Well, it wasn't because the episodes were crap. Yeah, nah. It was all about strategy, mate. Competition and, yep, some of that cold hard cash. By 1983, the first run of syndications was growing rapidly. Shows driven explicitly by massive toy lines like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe were taking over television. They were using syndication models that bypassed network television entirely. And ABC, they kind of got spooked and shifted their priorities and left the 1983 Super Friends batch sitting on a dusty shelf.
In retrospect, it was a poor choice.
Now, American audiences, they didn't get a proper official look at these episodes until 1995, like over a decade later, when they finally aired as part of the Superman and Batman adventures on the USA Network. And when fans and animation critics alike finally got to see them, the response was overwhelmingly positive. The season leaned right back into that classic comic book style action. You had your core Justice League heroes solving planetary crises, fighting giant monsters, and squaring off against those familiar threats in the stories that clearly reflected the 10 years of production experience Hanna-Barbera had.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Because of the wild broadcast history, Season 7 is packed to the brim with some fascinating and interesting details. Like, for starters, it marks the final stretch before the series made a massive creative shift in the mid-80s when it rebranded to link up directly with the awesome Kenner's iconic Superpowers toy line. And it also became an absolute goldmine for internet and memes. The Wonder Twins, with their over-the-top ridiculous transformations, and William Woodson's dramatic narration, have found a second life online.
Memeing on the internet?
Now, for the longest time, tracking these episodes down was a proper headache for collectors. 4 years. If you wanted to see this season, you had to trade a dodgy Blu-ray VHS tape with some dodgy bloke in a car park at a comic convention. Yeah, not good. But finally, in 2009, Warner Home Video, gave us the official domestic home release of, yep, the 2-disc DVD set of the Super Friends The Lost Episodes. It's packed with all 24 segments together, restored in their proper place in their timeline, and given them a complete digital transfer, which is great. Sure, it didn't have any real bonus features, but having the footage preserved was a massive win for us collectors. And then Warner Brothers dropped the big one, a massive remastered Blu-ray box set containing all 93 episodes across all 9 seasons of the show. It gave the picture and sound quality a major high def polish, as of right now, there ain't no plans to get any 4K HD releases. But that's not a surprise.
Ain't that the truth?
Now, for this season, which, like I said, was released here in Australia first, I gotta say, I actually think I remember a couple of these episodes from when I was a kid. I mean, not every sort of detail, of course, but rewatching them, it kind of felt strangely familiar, and I really thoroughly enjoyed them all, actually, even though it followed the same exact 3-segment formula as the previous 3 seasons. The stories were actually pretty good. We got way more classic villains this time around, which was great. It was actually really awesome to see all of them. And the absolute piece de resistance, yes, the Legion of Doom. How bloody good was that? It was so good to see the whole gang of those loose units back together, causing absolute chaos. I mean, all around, this season was probably the strongest of the last 4 seasons that used this short form segment format, and that's why I'm going to give this probably a solid 8 out of 10. Look, there's still a little bit of room for improvement, sure, but it was bloody fun to watch, and just a fair dinkum ripper journey down memory lane, that's for sure.
Never underestimate nostalgia.
The 1983 season may have been lost to American TV screens during its original run, but it was never forgotten, at least not by us here in Australia, that's for sure. It remains a bloody fascinating time capsule from an era when superheroes were transitioning from Saturday morning novelty acts to a global cultural juggernaut. It takes us back to a simpler time when heroes were noble, villains were dramatic, and justice was always only half an hour away. So look, the next time you see a classic clip of the Justice League taking off to kick someone's ass, just remember the lost season that kept the adventures going against all the odds.
Keep the dream alive.
Next week on the show, we're going to look at the Red Sonja movie from 1985 on DVD. So time for some classic old school sword and sorcery. Thanks for watching.